Councilmember.
Morning, everybody. Unfortunately, Chairman Jackson was unable to be here today, this afternoon. Sends his best for a productive meeting. Unfortunately, you get stuck with me, so I talk long so you can finish chewing and eating your lunch. No, but I'm Leroy Staples, I'm the District 3 representative for Leech Lake Manimal Ojibwe. I've been on council since 2012. We have 4-year terms, so re-elected in 16-20. My term goes till 2024. We have staggered terms. So on my election year, it's the chair and the District 3 rep. And then on the off years or midterms of my term would be the secretary treasurer, District 1 and 2. I don't know if that's put a map up, but Leech Lake, the western part of Leech Lake goes from the Onigum Walker area all the way up 371, Oak Point, Wilkinson in the Cass Lake, and then all of north of Cass Lake, just east of here, a few miles, I guess, is where District 1 kind of meets up. But District 2 is our center part of our reservation, so it's like the Kego Lake, Longville up Highway, I think that's 8, Sugar Point, Federal Dam, Bena area, and then District 1 is our eastern part of the reservation, which is Deer River Ball Club, Inger, S Lake area. So big area, over 864,000 acres. Big area to cover, lots of water. Majority of the reservation is land, but say about 45+% is lakes, rivers, waterways, and wetlands. So there's kind of a lot of different variations of land management that we have, but there's a lot of roads, and we also border with, or we cover areas with 4 counties. So as everyone will know, the Beltrami area is the most northwestern part of the reservation. Cass County covers a lot of the reservation, covered a little sliver on the western part, and then Itasca in our most eastern part of the reservation. So I was on, what was I doing? I was doing a presentation to a class at the Humphrey School, U of M, about governance and tribal governance and how tribal governments work with other governments. Not an expert, but just got a few years of experience and just kind of saying what we've done or how it's worked or how it might not have worked with other areas of government. And so I was talking to them in my intro, and I was just kind of letting them know that when I got elected in 2012, there wasn't an extreme, rigorous orientating me into my position of how all that works and overlaps. And so I was just thinking I had this reservation boundary line, and that's the line I focused in on. My constituency, my district line, that's what I mostly focus in on, but we make decisions for everybody else, and then tribal members. And then a few weeks and months passed, and I learned quickly that wasn't even close to being the case, that we overlap with so many different jurisdictions and townships and counties and cities and state and federal and other federal agencies, that there was a quick learning. And so, I've tried to do my part. I do classes, we have a tribal college instructor here. We do classes at the tribal college and try to educate people, but it's not just educating tribal members and Leech Lake members, it's educating non-tribal members and non-Leech Lake members throughout the state, really. I mean, the state government, legislators, state agencies, and even the feds, right? It's not written in all the textbooks as everybody goes through their normal schooling, so this is not something that everybody just has a degree on and knows how everything overlaps and works together. So we at Leech Lake, we don't say we got to figure it out. All we say is we lend a helping hand and try to work with people and really figure that out. So if we have 4 counties, it's not going to work the same in every single county, in every single county board, in every single township. It's going to be different people, different dynamics, different politics. And so there's a lot of moving parts. And I was pretty excited to see a meeting with Beltrami on the map. I mean, I've mostly grown up in Cass Lake, but I've lived in Bemidji and I have lived in Beltrami for a really long time. I lived in Bemidji kind of growing up a few years, and I've lived in Beltrami County in the Mission area for most of my adult years. So Beltrami is where I reside, and I'm really looking forward to the meeting and building relationships. I just met county administrator here, so we're talking about deer hunting and deer passing. We're gonna go push some deer together. So welcome everybody here today, and hope it's a productive meeting. Thank you much.
So my name is Tim Sumner. I'm the Beltrami County Board Chair for this year. Also a citizen of the Red Lake Nation. I want to welcome everybody. As I mentioned, today is a historic day, and I want to thank the Leech Lake band for the delicious lunch. Thank you. It isn't very often that the board meets and we're treated with lunch, so it's a real treat. And with that being said, we have extras back there if anybody would like to have some or take some home. You're more than welcome. So we don't want to do food. As for myself, I've been on the board for 9 years, and I mentioned, this is actually the first time that I've known us to be meeting with the Leech Lake band. I think maybe 6 years ago we met with the Red Lake band. So, oftentimes when I go to the association in sort of counties or other counties, visit other jurisdictions, I often hear about the collaboration between the Leech Lake band and the counties. And I'm hopeful that today is going to be that step in that direction where we can come together and work on projects. I know our health and human services and our sheriff, a lot of our services intertwine with each other, and I think it only makes sense that we get together, break bread and see what we can do to work together to better serve our citizens. So I'm really excited. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over for invitation.
Say mama, I was too on ma. We do it on the Genesis Mark, we try 812, we go for we visit our dog looking at my we waited, there's a ton of why. I struggle, we touch it. This sort of to what on it. I see what look at my but we have to tomorrow. In the work, we work. That's yours, we still in March, they will let you. We answer the police, we want to do this to the 8 months. Okay, that's the one, the Russian of the other 2 hours, escape. Same hour escape, we still with you, we want to tower, you go. That's your logo, which to get out of the work. And the second slot, that's the 12 national. We don't want, we want another word of when I see you something. We came down, we touches in As a creator, if I could speak a little English for a while, I started off by introducing my Indian name with the Lone Thunderbird. My clan is an Eagle clan. I'm first degree Gaylord member. We started off asking the spirits to accept the food and the same and the song to come listen to us, help us with our work, what we're here for, to get a better understanding of each other. Become better acquainted with each other. And I know that That's the way things have happened. The more you get to know people, the better off we are. We've been separated too long, more ways than one. It's a good thing to get going on this today. It's a challenge to all of us to be helpful in what they got written down there. I want to thank you for listening. While I was smoking the pipe, my son would sing a song, you could stand up or around and listen to the beautiful song that he was singing. Okay, son. Go. Good. I'd like to talk a little bit here before you continue on the real issue here. My English name is Michael Smith. For many years, I've done volunteer work for the Department of Corrections. And I was visiting the prisons throughout the state of Minnesota. And also the federal pen in the mental ward in verbal. And the sex offenders were in floodway. I know the capacity of my work for the last 15 years. And I'm still working with trouble surrounding people. At the halfway house here in Catholic. One of those boys that I met in prison, they used to say, Mike, I sure wish I knew somebody like you before, when I was a kid. I said, yeah, that's probably good time. I said, there's always a start, the beginning to correcting your life. I said, the first thing I would do if I was you, I said, is locate a elder in your community and sit down with that person and ask a lot of questions how to lead a good life. And I want to thank you guys for listening. I think we should have somebody younger than me going to the county jails and talk to the people inside the jail. Even at least an hour a week. When they're behind bars, they do a lot of thinking. And that leads to bad thoughts. But if they know that this person's gonna be here on a certain day, and if you're a good prisoner, you're gonna behave, you know? They're gonna listen to you. I found that out at Grand Rapids County Jail. Fantastic. And that was when Waxhaw was in place. And before that, it was, when I really started off at was that little double wide trailer house behind the hospital. It's called a detox center. That's where I started off after the Shinabi people. That was back in the 70s. I'm still going with the help of my son. He's a powerful little man. We practice his ways every day. He works with a teacher out of White Bear Lake School there. 1 hour a week. He tells stories about the Shinabi people. To the few Shinabi people they got in that school. Then he teaches them our language. Either one he does, he kind of sits back and forth. He does it all on his computer. I don't know the first thing about a computer. I didn't know how to work myself. Be great for listening.
We worked my first education and some welcome and appreciate that. So we'll move along the agenda here. And, I'm not too sure if anybody has a copy of the agenda or.
Yeah, does anybody need a copy of the agenda? Raise your hand if you need it. Everybody has?
So with that, we'll move on to the Beltrami County Board presentation.
Actually, we're gonna do introductions first.
Oh, yeah, I see that. Thank you. I see now Tom had an multiple, so So, introductions.
Tom can start.
can't get a break. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Tom Berry. I'm the County Administrator for Beltrami County. It's my honor to be a part of this. I want to thank Irene and Leech Lake Band for having us and for helping put this together. Thank you also for lunch. I also want to thank County Board for their guidance and support in putting this meeting together. This was a challenge that was given to me last year by the board, to try to put something together with Leech Lake. So something we've been thinking about for some time, which I'm grateful for. And then I also want to thank the Ten Lake Township for giving us the use of their facility and helping us with the AV and all of that sort of stuff. Welcome everybody, and thank everybody for coming, including the staff of both organizations. We're so grateful to be a part of this today. Thank you all.
Jim Lukacek, Beltrami County Commissioner. Been a commissioner for 13 years. Traveled much of the Leech Lake Reservation land. What I do for a living is I'm a self-employed architect. So I've designed, excuse me, I've designed many of your homes from Ontogenian down to Lonagum, to Kego, to Boy River, to near Walker, in Prescott, and the Preston property, Prescott property, Wilkins property. I think I've seen all four corners of the great land here, and know a lot of the rivers and the lakes and the water and a lot of the folks that live here. So that's what I do for a living. But I became an elected official to make it a better place, and I look forward to working in conjunction with the Leech Lake Band. I think we need to kick that up a bit. And I've been to a number of your State of the Band addresses. Sheriff Ernie Lytle and I attended last year. We listened, we tried to listen to what the concerns are of your band. Really appreciate it, and started looking into the relationship we have with the Cass County Board. And we are kind of hoping that we can push our county board kind of in that same direction.
As well. I spent my life, most of it as an educator, teaching elementary, middle school, and closed out my career by being principal of Lincoln High School for the last 7 years of education. Now my wife and I are retired. Our 8 grandkids kind of keep us occupied, and just enjoy being on the county board and dealing with the issues that surface. Thank you for having us here today.
Craig Goddard, Commissioner District 1. Haven't gotten a formal meet Councilor Staples Fairbanks over there, but we did work on the project together, and I'm thankful for that and how we can hopefully expand that and doing more work together. And really, this is my district for the county. The southeastern part of the county is District 1. That's what I am. It's my 4th year as a county commissioner, and really enjoy the opportunity that we have today to work together. Thank you.
I'm Reed Olson, Beltrami County Commissioner representing District 2, which is our more urban district. So I represent 3 city wards and Eccles Township. I've had the honor of speaking in front of the Leech Lake board in the past, and representing the nonprofit of which I'm the executive director, the Maine Scholarship for Homeless. We operate a shelter and day center in Michigan. So we presented in front of your board in the past, your council in the past. Really excited to be here. I'll echo what Jim said. I've been going to the town, to the State of the Band addresses since I've gotten on the county board, and I'm a little bit envious of the relationship that you guys have, the good working relationship we have with Cass County, and then hopefully we can figure out a way to have a better, stronger relationship with that in the past. So thank you. And then I also want to thank you for bringing the food. And I've been a cook most of my life until very recently. I've been in the kitchen since I was 14. Whenever I'm at events like this, I always like to thank the cooks. So if you could please tell the kitchen back at the casino, thank you for the food, because it was really good. I really appreciate it. So thank
And
you.
Reed, can you take the rest to the bowl afterwards?
I'm driving down to the cities
I'll
from
take it.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take one for myself.
All right, it's me again. Tim Sumner, County Commissioner, District 4, which is the northern part of Beltrami County. I have the largest district by land. Takes me a couple hours to get from one end to the other. And today's probably took me a little bit longer than it would take me to get to a county board meeting, so it's great to be here. But before I continue on, I want to acknowledge Bemidji City Council member Audrey Thayer. Welcome. I understand that Leech Lake and Bemidji City Council recently met as well, and I'm excited for all the relationship buildings that are going on with the city, the county, Leech Lake. So, I can only expect that great things are going to be happening. So without further ado, we'll kick off with Tom with the Beltrami County Board presentation.
Jim, I just want to make sure that county board's aware that I'm employed by my wife as well. Well, that they do. I acknowledge what I do, and I'm here representing myself, I'm texting some of the councilmen talking about it.
So I was reminded of for press. No, I was kidding. We're running this clock. No, I was kidding. We're running into time. Before we do a presentation, I'd like to offer an opportunity for Leech Lake and maybe some elected officials to introduce themselves before the county presentation.
Just me. You got two other electeds, right? If they want to introduce themselves.
Certainly. Hi, everybody. Sheriff Rebuttal. Sheriff's Office. I've been here in this area for the last 32 years. Cut my teeth here just a few miles south of here in Castle. I served, I was about 6 years in my law enforcement career. Coming to the end, I decided this year to retire after 58 years. So I'm going to be a one and done sheriff for that term. So happy to be invited back to talk about issues and talk about collaboration, cooperation, the future of relationships we have with our tribal members in the county. Thank you very much.
David Hanson, Beltrami County Attorney. If you're short, say. Thank you.
Do you want to go next?
I'm not an elected official.
That's okay. I'm gonna go too, and I'm not elected.
I'm Becky Secor, I'm the Director of Health and Human Services in Beltrami County. Really happy to be here and hoping for a great opportunity. And thank you for the food. It's wonderful.
Yeah, sure. Or
Now we can just go around the room and so.
who wants to be the one that says, no, skip everybody except me?
I'm Heather Broda. I am the Government Relations Coordinator for the Leech Lake Band, and I work Friday. Nice to see everybody. And I live right down the I'm Patricia Hart. I just live in here.
Matt Carter, Director of Rules. The sheriff runs my family law. Bonjour, everyone. Ken Washington, Police Chief, Police and Travel Police. I'm Michael Sosa. I'm the Communications Director at the
I'm Ashley Merson. I'm Cheryl Jackson, Executive Assistant.
Stuff from the radio station. I'm Mary. I'm from Lakeland Public.
I'm Dave Flynn, I'm the Human Resources Director for the Leech Lake. Good afternoon, Earl Robinson, Leech Lake Human Services Director.
Bruce, that's where coming in here.
Good afternoon, everybody. Chris Muller, Beltrami County Sheriff's Office, I'm the Emergency Manager Director for the county, as well as our Communications Director and 911 Supervisor. Good afternoon, Social Services Director.
Oh, I'm Diane Moe, I work in the county administration office.
I'm Irene Fulstrom. I'm the government relations person, manager, I think I am, for Leech Lake. And welcome, everybody.
Good afternoon, my name is Christopher Murray, I'm the legal director for Leech Lake Dam. Interim.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Mel Ringo and Mel cook the food.
Most important person in the room.
Thank you, Mel.
You're all
Appreciate it.
welcome.
I don't think anybody's gonna let you off that easy.
And then the Smiths, I guess you didn't really have a chance to. Like,
Okay.
no.
How about you?
Okay.
We go. Michael Smith Jr., I'm the proud son of Mike Smith and Patricia Smith. She's at home right now. We live just up the road on 45. Those are the uncles. That road well. But I want to thank you all for coming to this beautiful event. So excited that these things are happening. I work for the Blue Cross Blue Shield Empowerment Program and community cultural advocate. This is literally my job description right here. Thank you.
You forgot to add something about himself. I'll add to it. When he was about kindergarten. Oh, he was supposed to start school at Cass Lake. And, his mom had a hard time getting him on a bus. He made it through the day. But he said, when he got home, he said, "Mom, I don't care what you do to me, what you make me do. I'm not going back to that school." He said, "How come, son?" He said, "Those people are terrible over there." I don't know what he meant by terrible. So she said, "Okay. Okay, you don't have to, but you're gonna have to get some school here at home." He said, "Yeah." He said, "Yeah, I'll do that." So that was the only day that he went to school. So we left. And the rest of it was all home schools. That's where he got all his education and his whole home today. He either got from me, or he got 99% of it from his mom. He got him right, wrong. Still at you, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, Tom.
Mr. Chairman. When we were putting this meeting together, we thought because it's fairly historic in nature and each of the organizations didn't know a whole lot about one another potentially, we were asked for some information, just background as it relates to each of our organizations. So I just put a quick slide presentation together, talking about our governance structure and an overview and a little bit of history for the county. And so I just want to go through that here really quickly. I know we're running a little bit late on time here, but see if I can. It's not. So I'll just go like this. Or not. Screen sharing.
We've seen enough PowerPoints.
I know you're a fan of them, so I made this one extra long.
You're good.
I can. See if we'll go back into it. I've got it printed out here if we need to as well. So but Diane has amazing skills, so I'm not gonna put the wall. All right, see if this works. There we go. All right, so by the numbers, we're relatively small in population, about 21 out of the 87 counties, about 48,000 in population, just over 3,000 square miles in land, so that puts us at the third largest county in the state. We were founded in 1866, have 86 townships, which is a large number of townships, 8 cities within our boundaries, and then 2 sovereign tribal nations. And of course, our county seat is Bemidji. Our mission and values are here. I won't read those because we're running short on time. But our county seat does serve over 100,000 folks that come through either in tourism or other sorts of reasons that they come in. Additionally, we host the smallest town in the state of Minnesota, which is kind of an interesting statistic as well. So moving forward, I was going to talk a little bit about the historical significance of our county. We were one of the original 9 counties in the state when it was formed. And of course, our county was created in 1866, but officially organized in 1896, one of those original 9. We had 137 townships back then. And then now, of course, we only have the 86 or so. So our county seat, Bemidji, was named in 1897, so pretty old. And of course, our county is named after, and I always get the first name wrong, Giacomo Beltrami, who was the Italian explorer that was looking for the source of the Mississippi River. All right, our governance structure overview is that we work just like all the rest of the counties. We have a board of commissioners. We have 5 commissioners that work in staggered districts for 4-year terms. They set policy, approve the budget, oversee finances, those kinds of things, address citizens' concerns. This is the district map. You can see District 4, which is Commissioner Sumner's district, is the largest by area. All districts, just like the census is going through, are organized essentially on equal amounts of population. So that's why some districts are large in area or smaller in area, because they are related also to how many people are served in those particular areas. The board does have advisory boards and commissions that they will assign. And these commissions actually work on behalf of the board. They study issues, help make recommendations for policy or other challenge issues and that kind of stuff to the board. The board will eventually hear and take action on. The county administrator, which is me, I report to the board, and then essentially serve as the chief executive officer for the county, and then also implement the policy of the board and manage the finances and overall operations of the county. And then we have department heads, some elected and some appointed, and then some hired. And so they manage day-to-day operations for the various departments that they're responsible for. This is our organizational structure. We have 15 departments. Of these departments, 3 of them are essentially elected positions. So our county attorney, our sheriff, and then our auditor treasurer are elected positions, and they manage their own county departments. We also have 4 judges, and then with our 5 commissioners makes us have 12 total elected officials for the county. We have about 430 employees, 370 are full-time, and the rest are part-time or seasonal or temporary staff. Moving forward, we are a full-service county. We provide most of the essential services that most counties are responsible for in the state of Minnesota. We also have public health. Not all counties have public health. So this is just a listing of the types of services that we provide across the county. As of course, being a large county, it's challenging to provide all these services, over a 3,000 square mile area. I put a little bit of financial information here. We're generally running the county with about a $90 million budget. Our combined revenue sources are that 90 million, but the majority of the dollars that we get are intergovernmental, which means they come from the state or other governmental entities, federal and state governments. Only 39% of our revenues come from taxes. And then charges for services make up the other about 10%. And then there's a smattering of other different allocations of revenue for the county. Our expenditures are divided this way. About 28% is health and human services related for the county. That's really a fundamental mission of counties across not just Minnesota, but the entire United States. Highway and streets makes 24%, public safety about 15%, general government, which is kind of all the other support functions of government, almost 20% there. One of the things about our county that's kind of interesting is that only about 30% of the land in the county is actually taxable. All the rest of it's not taxable. It's either in federal ownership or state ownership or something else. So we don't have a large tax base to provide the services that we do. And so that is a huge challenge for our county. Speaking of challenges and opportunities, I put together just a couple of really high level challenges for the county. Of course, we'll be talking a little bit more later in this conversation about the Beltrami County Jail and the efforts that the county has been taking to study and evaluate various solutions to attack that particular challenge, which is the jail. Also, mental health is a huge challenge for us across the county, but certainly in various organizational aspects or of cities and townships and whatnot. But that's a big challenge. Workforce and housing is also another enormous challenge for us. Having enough workforce and enough housing, and then limited revenues, like I said earlier, are also challenging. A lot of our challenges become opportunities, right, if looked at them in the right way. So most of them I've listed here as opportunities, but also I added strengthening relationships. That's one thing that I appreciate with the board is their genuine desire to really improve the relationship, the networking, the collaboration with our neighbors, other jurisdictions, and that's really the reason why we're here. So I appreciate that. I love being a part of that as well. I'll stop there and just give my contact information. You can ask questions if you like now, but I think for the sake of time, we'll just turn it over. Irene, I think you might have something as well.
That was great. Any questions? On our end, Lee, about the presentation?
I do. So, because a smaller percentage of the county has taxable land and probably a lot of other counties throughout the state, does the state have a specified earmark for the county just to balance that out then, and what's that called?
It does. It's called payment in lieu of taxes, or also referred to as PILT dollars. The challenge with the PILT dollars is that they haven't escalated as our costs have, right? So the PILT dollars that we get become less and less and less every year because they pretty much stay the same. But the needs that we have in our community continue to grow. And the other challenge we have is that more and more land seem to be converting toward either state-owned land or federal or whatnot. So we continue to have this sort of shrinking dollar amount, but also this increase in land that's not that's taken out off the tax base. And that doesn't account for essentially like schools, other government organizations, like the city that are all non-taxable, hospitals, a lot of lands, even within the county that are not taxable, that are separate from federal or state-owned lands. So it's a big challenge.
I just asked him, or what you shared what he said.
Absolutely, love to do that. I'll get it to you, Irene.
That sounds good. I'll give it to everybody.
Okay, so I don't know how to use these really, so, but this is a very basic overview of our government. And I just made it. Okay, so welcome everybody. So this is our reservation, District 1. We are right now in District 3 up right here. Leroy's the District 3 representative. We have two other district representatives, Robbie Howe and Steve White. And then we have a secretary treasurer and the chairman. And that should be the next.
I had to shake it. If you shake it.
Oh, it is. Shake it.
Shake it, just shake it a little bit. That gives Diane a chance to do it.
It's still down. That's okay. I can just, yeah, I might just tap on it. Oh, it wants to give us a tour now. So, I mean, I could just probably just go ahead. Oh, yeah. Here we go. So this is our leadership. Our elected leadership is on top. Chairman, secretary, treasurer, District 1, 2, 3 reps, and then we have an executive director and deputy director that provide our executive direction. And they're not elected. Those are our beautiful and handsome council members. So here's a snapshot of the reservation. So we have more than 860,000 acres, including more than 360 acres of water surface. We have 9,500 enrolled members. And as far as employment goes, many of us work for various local, tribal, and state government agencies, including the school districts, which are our biggest employers. We are actually the largest local employer, and we employ more than 2,500 people in all of our programs and businesses. We actually are the biggest employer in Cass County as well. And then I think I have another statistics too. So these are really cool, like little trivia things. Could be for like trivia game or something. But so 10%, so 10,000 lakes, 10% of those 10,000 lakes in Minnesota are actually in Leech Lake, or within our reservation boundaries, which I thought was cool. I didn't know that. Roughly, so our reservation is roughly the size of Rhode Island. We only have 110,000 acres of feedland. So, total, we have 408 lakes, 366,000 acres of wetland or surface water, which is pretty hefty. Our land base is, like we said, I said it earlier, 860,000 acres, and half of that is covered by, about half is covered by bodies of water. We have, that's good. I just wanted to get those little factoids in there. So we are a self-governing society that predated contact with European people. The Treaty of 1855 is what established our reservation as we know it today. And treaties, I think everybody's heard what a treaty is, but a treaty is actually a legally binding contract between two sovereigns. And the Supreme Court has determined that treaties are the supreme law of the land. They are just as superior as the US Constitution. So the 1855 treaty signed by the Ojibwe in the United States, we gave the Anishinaabe, the Ojibwe people gave the United States a large tract of land in what is now Minnesota. And in that treaty, it reserved the right for all of us Ojibwe to hunt, fish, and gather on the land. So in exchange for the land that Minnesota is now has borders around, we retain the rights to hunt, fish, and gather. So, and those are within the treaty. So, and this is really cool. So we have actually been engaged in a government-to-government relationship with the United States government longer than the state of Minnesota has actually been a state. So we've been at this for a long time. So now the laws changed the treaties. After the treaties were signed, many laws were passed by Congress that limited or changed the terms of the treaty without consent of the Ojibwe. Reservation land was sold, the right to hunt, gather was no longer recognized. This caused a lot of broken trust in the Ojibwe community. And then after that, we had a series of Supreme Court cases, which reaffirmed our right to hunt, fish, and gather within our territory, within our treaty territory. So this is pretty significant. The Chippewa National Forest was carved out of the Leech Lake Reservation as a forest administered by the federal government, and it was done so without our input. But as you can see, and Ben is here, Ben would love to talk for hours about this. So the Chippewa National Forest is the green, and the reservation is right here. So it encompasses our entire reservation. Or we encompass 3/4 of the Chippewa National Forest. We are actually organized under, our government is organized under the Indian Reorganization Act, which was passed in 1937. And this was, so I'll just read it, just decided to change the way it's dealing with all tribes in the United States. So it passed a law known as the IRA. This law created a process for tribes to regain land that they had lost, as well as establish tribal governments. So the United States government didn't want to deal with this individually or because all tribes have different forms of government. We all have different structures. They vary in some way. No government is the same. So the United States, in an attempt to make us more uniform, so that they could have easier dealings with us, sort of didn't really give us back the land, but they regained some land in exchange for establishing ourselves under this corporate structure. So the Indian Reorganization Act structure is a corporate structure. And many tribal governments now are moving towards establishing their own structure or going back to their traditional way of governing, like Red Lake. So Red Lake has a traditional form of, it has a traditional structure of government in place now with the hereditary chiefs. And we are organized under the Indian Reorganization Act still. Doesn't mean that Red Lake's a lot cooler than us though. Yeah, so these tribal governments often did not fit the history or customs of the tribal people, instead mirrored corporate governance models that made the Indian people easier for the federal government. So that's a little bit of a self-determination. That's the policies all changed. The federal policies changed, which then provided us with more ability to be empowered to set our own way of engaging with external governments and also for determining how we wanted to govern and what our structure would look like. And that all kind of took place in the 70s, like late 70s, early 80s. And we're still seeing some remnants of that era today. Hunting and fishing rights. So in the late 1960s and early 70s, Leech Lake sued the state of Minnesota to regain the right to hunt and fish without the state's oversight. The state fought Leech Lake on this issue for almost 2 years as the court case dragged down. We won. Ultimately, the state of Leech Lake, settled, that's right, settled the lawsuit by agreeing that the people of Leech Lake have the right to hunt, fish, and gather on the reservation without oversight of the state, but the state still have the right to oversee non-Indians on the reservation. So when you come to a reservation and you get a hunting or fishing license, you don't come to our Division of Resource Management, which is where we have to go. You go and get it from the state. So that's what that case decided. So part of the Indian Reorganization Act organized us under the umbrella of the Minnesota Chippewa tribe. So you might hear the Minnesota Chippewa tribe referred to as a government here. They're based in Cass Lake. And they are comprised of all six Ojibwe bands except for Red Lake. And it's a sort of an umbrella confederation of sorts. They are recognized as a sovereign, but we are also recognized as sovereign governments ourselves who belong to it. So it's the other six Ojibwe bands, us, Boys Board, White Earth, Grand Portage, Fond du Lac, and one more, Mille Lacs. Okay, let's see. So these are our enterprises. We have, so our tribal enterprises are currently operated through our Leech Lake gaming structure. That's kind of changing a bit. And I think we're transitioning to a different structure, but for now, that's how it is. We have small businesses. We just opened Cedar Lake Casino, which hopefully you guys have all visited and contributed to. But we just opened that 3 years ago, and we just purchased Leech Lake, or the Teal's Super Value, which is now Leech Lake Market. And then we have a number of other small businesses like Chewy and Bay, and then Chewy Office of, or what is it called? It was Chewy Gas Station, now it's Leech Lake Supplies. And yep, there's our sign, and that's today, and that's it. That's all I have. Any questions? One thing I did want to add, so your budget, so our budget's about 120 million. So just for context, our government is about the same size as yours. Yes.
Of your land area, do you know like percentages of how much is federal or state and how much is privately held? Because there's, you know, it's kind of interesting because we know of so many privately held properties, private residences, private resorts, all of that sort of thing. So can you give me a little, maybe Leroy can help out too a little bit. You give me a little bit of an idea of the definition of the reservation is there's a boundary around that, but within that, there's a lot of other things going on, right? There's lots of other lands and the Chippewa Forest and all of that. So can you just expand on that a little bit?
So if we look at one of our maps, and there's a legend on the map that talks about the different classifications of parcel of property within the Leech Lake Reservation, there would be Department of Interior and Department of Agriculture are two federal areas that oversee or trust land within the reservation. There's state land, there's county land, there's Chippewa National Forest would be a part of the USDA land. There's also privately held land, There's Leech Lake that's Leech Lake land that's directly titled to Leech Lake, but there's also land, and this is the complicated part, and this is the separation or the difference in where Red Lake is at or versus where Leech Lake is at, is Red Lake wasn't broken up during the allotment era. Red Lake still holds the whole reservation. All their tribal members hold that in common. So the whole reservation is not individually owned by any band member, it's owned by the people. And so every single directly owned parcel of property for Leech Lake would be the same, but Leech Lake was a part of, I won't use a total negative word, but it was picked apart by the allotment era. So the allotment era was, the treaty era was like, okay, here, we're gonna meet with you guys, let's come to a treaty and you guys will be here. And all the Indians will go here. And after that, the assimilation process wasn't happening fast enough. They're like, well, okay, let's go give everybody 40 or 80 acres, however that worked out. And so if they didn't sell it fast enough, or if they didn't move on it fast enough, then it was taxed. And so obviously there was not the economy as they would want it within the reservation. So Indians were unable to pay taxes on those things, right? And so then they went into forfeiture and they ended up losing it. And so that's how a lot of those type of tactics is how land was able to exchange from direct ownership from a tribal member to a non-tribal member. And that's how it's all broken up. And you'll see now land that wasn't taken, that was an allotment, it's now held. So we're all an heir to a piece of property, and then we all pass, and then it goes to all of our heirs beyond us. And it's basically unusable because you can't use that piece of property if you don't have over 50% of the heirs that are approving a piece of property. So we're all heirs, and then we can't locate 50% of the people who are an heir to that property, then it's unusable. And so there's also allotment parcels that are part of what we help manage as well. But I don't, the direct ownership or the direct acreage of allotments on the band, do you know that?
We own around 35,000 acres, including allotments. So allotments are probably 20% of that number. So,
but percentage wise of what you would see as on a map legend of Leech Lake property, it's probably less than 10% of the band or the reservation.
We own about 4% of the reservation.
His calculator works different than mine. I just
So we had a big map that we brought, but we realized it was the wrong map. It was for a different presentation. So Heather and I were very discouraged. So we had one to show you, but this is the best.
The point of the question, Leroy, was exactly what you just spelled out, is that it's not just a simple, straightforward boundary, and that there's many conditions behind that, and there's many things still in the works, right?
Yes.
It is a complex formula, and it's a complex ongoing, and it's always ongoing, and it's always being reviewed and looked at.
Definitely.
Do you guys have an understanding, and I could have Ben, because Ben, he's a really articulate guy. Understand the whole Leech Lake Land Restoration Act bill?
We're getting our land out.
Do you guys, so I could say unless Ben wants to, I know Ben is just itching to get up and talk, right? You want to?
Sure, yeah. So yeah, like Leroy said, and like you alluded to, the Leech Lake ownership is a checkerboard, of ownership. And, in our next presentation, she mentioned that 110,000 acres of it are fee lands, and those are taxable lands, so anyone can own them. And, so 150 years ago, Leech Lake was the same as Red Lake. It was all tribally owned ownership. Through time, the federal government, divvied up allotments to all the Indian families. What wasn't divvied up was then open for sale, to what sell. And ultimately, that didn't really work out. The history, like Irene went through, they formed the Chippewa National Forest with some of the lands that didn't sell. That's still here today. So you see really a mixed match of all these ownerships. In the 40s and 50s,
when the US federal government was terminating Indian tribes, you know, that was kind of like the policy at the time. What that meant for Leech Lake is a few things happened, you know, like Enbridge came through with the Enbridge pipeline. And the Department of Interior, which manages all the trust assets, lands for the band, was sending out
Reserves.
yeah, sorry, was sending out letters. So allotments, you know, even though they're trust parcels, are really like a private parcel of land. Like you can't do anything on allotment because it's owned by an individual family. So that family has to give approval, you know, for anything you want to do. If you want to do a timber sale or build a house or put a road there, you need approval from that family. And that can be problematic if you don't know where the heirs are, because then you can't really do anything with the land. It just sits there. So what was happening in the 40s and 50s is the Department of Interior was sending out letters asking if these families of these allotments wanted to sell them. And if they got a yes response, they'd mark a yes. If they got a no, they'd mark a no. And if they didn't get any response at all, or if they just deemed that person incompetent, they were just marking yes. So what happened is about 20,000 acres of Indian allotted land was transferred illegally to the Department of Agriculture. So the Chippewa National Forest was able to expand its land holdings pretty significantly over this time, you know, through this illegal process. And over time, you know, this became more and more apparent. Somebody sued the federal government over in the 70s, and the judge at the time ruled that the statute of limitations had passed. So in order to correct this, you know, those people need to go to the Congress to try to get it changed legislatively. So about 10 years ago, the tribe worked with, you know, some of our Congress folks to enact legislation to try to correct, you know, that problem within the reservation. And the way this land breaks up, you know, the Chippewa National Forest sits in Beltrami County. There's about 5,000 acres in the county that the Chippewa National Forest oversees today that were stolen from us. In Itasca County, it's about 15,000 acres. In Itasca County, it's like 7,000. So, you know, give or take. Somewhere along those lines. And the legislation that was passed a couple years ago is to restore the parcels in Cass County. So that's something that the division I oversees to implement. Good.
Wonderful.
So yeah, about 12,000 acres or so. Well, 16 or so now. To be restored to us. She has some. But any other questions while we're opening this?
I can just share that with the Chippewa National Forest, in all of the whole reservation and all the secretarial transfers is what we call them. There was a recommendation of not going for the whole reservation as a whole and trying to get them all transferred back. And so we focused in on areas first, and that's why it was specific to one area first, but it's not like the intent is just gonna stop there. So obviously, you know, sometime down the road, I mean, it's a pretty big undertaking, and there's a humongous process after the legislation was passed, after Congress and the president approved the bill. Then there was a bunch of work that we had to do with the Chippewa National Forest and identifying parcels, going through all the history of the parcels, if there's any contracts, any easements, everything. I mean, there's a whole process to that. So that's still happening. And the bill was signed or approved over a year ago, right? So December 2020. So, you know, we've talked with Itasca about this. Obviously, we haven't had the conversation though, but you know, that's just kind of letting you guys know how that process went with Cass County, is that was the bulk of it, right? So there was roughly 12,000 acres is what was a part of the legislation. And that's what the focus was for that. And, you know, what it really boils down to, in all honesty, is DC is going to want to know what's the local folks think? What does the state think? What does the county think? What do the townships think? That's how that all trickles back. And so, you know, if there's resistance, and there's no doubt with that bill that we got passed, there was humongous amount of resistance of us getting that bill passed. But what it took was for us to have conversations, and sorry, I just feel like I'm not speaking clearly. Vaccinated, by the way. What it took was having a lot of conversations and people who had questions or concerns, but they might have been unaware, right? So it's like, well, I have a lease on a Chippewa National Forest parcel in Cass County. What does that mean for my parcel? So we weren't going after people's leases and anything like that, right? So the Chippewa National Forest was in Congress, and everybody was asking questions, wanted to make sure that, you know, any existing contracts were honored, but people thought we weren't honoring contracts. I said, we're a legitimate government, we honor contracts. But there was industries that were afraid of working with us, and they didn't want land being transferred. And so when you really scale everything back, what he's talking about is righting the wrong. And that's all it was trying to do. And that's all we were attempting to do, is to continue to try to correct things that were done historically that were not in good faith. And all of the work that was on that part of that legislation, though, it was meeting with tons and tons of people. It was meeting with the county, it was meeting with townships, it was meeting with business owners, it was meeting with utilities, it was meeting with Enbridge, it was meeting with timber industry, it was meeting with everybody, and everybody had concerns, but we were able to work through that. Human being to human being, like saying, hey, we honor contracts. Hey, we do business with folks like your company is, the service that your company provides. We do business with people like that every single day, every 365 days a year. We're not like this illegitimate government who does not have attorneys and lawyers and laws, and we don't understand the legal world. And so it was just, as odd as it sounds, that's what we had to do. And having those conversations and just really letting people know. I don't know if it was through turkey sandwiches and soup so much. We didn't open the conversation like that, but it was just having that conversation just to let people know, like, this is historically what happened. We realize how land exchange and how things became to where they were today, but let's continue to move forward and try to make some things and fixing some things that were not done in the right way. And that's all that the work that people from Leech Lake, the families who are part of those allotments have been trying to do since the 40s and 50s. Well, late 50s when they found out about all their land being taken, but that's what the attempt was to do, and there was success in getting that passed. But that's just to kind of let you guys know a part of the effort that we had to take. And it took a long time. I mean, I was in office, I got in office in 2012, and there was rigorous efforts many decades before that, and getting to federal buildings and looking at land documents and really just trying to survey the land and get a historical record of our own to figure out what really happened, so we can prove what we're talking about. So we're not just talking about 4 years of congressional work that was done, or 3 different Congresses and bills and stuff like that. That was the latter end of the work. All the preliminary work was done for many, many years, and so there's a lot of people who might not have got credit for all that effort, but it's been going on for a really long time. So long story short, that's if anybody had any questions about secretarial transfers and what Leech Lake Land Restoration Act was or what it was about, that's a little bit of most of what it was about.
And we have more information too, if you guys have more questions. Ben is probably the best resource, call me and I'll find an answer for you.
Just a quick follow-up on that. So you're basically talking about government to government land transfers, right? I mean, this is the federal government is giving land or taking land that it controls and handing it over. But then as far as like the checkerboard of non-native privately held land on the reservation, is there an effort to try to reclaim that land, or is that that's a whole nother bucket? Can worms, I suppose.
I mean, there's always, just like anybody else, if there's an area that I thought was suitable, like, hey, we could build a hardware store right here. We're going to make an effort to try to acquire that.
I suppose Teals is a good example of that, of being able to.
I think that was more about food access than it was about the property, but not, you know, I mean, it was twofold, but yeah, I mean, it's land, the tribe buys land every year. We don't have enough resources to aggressively do anything like that, but I mean, there's been a reacquisition plan for as long as I've been on council. Expensive though, when you think about
Yeah.
$2,000 an acre of just straight land with no structures on it, then 864,000 acres, nothing. We don't have that kind of money. That's not even on Lake Shore, right? So, but yeah, no, we slowly, I mean, we purchased land. And why do we purchase land? I mean, if you talked about the percentage of what land that we do have and the amount of tribal members we have, we don't just want to focus on low-income housing projects as this is where tribal members go. We need to have land available for people for home ownership, for economic development, and for other reasons, of course. But we don't have enough land for all tribal members who want to get a lease to go build a house. We don't. So that's why the effort is there to reacquire land, so we can provide that opportunity for tribal members for home ownership, for them to build assets for themselves and not be reliant on low-income housing, which some people might not qualify for, and some people might not want to move there.
And generational wealth.
But it is a housing issue for sure. I mean, accessibility for housing, it's a big issue. And a drive to have opportunity for people. Otherwise, they move to Bemidji, right? And then they're kind of away from our services, our businesses, and our reservation county seat, per se, you know, so they leave because there's not enough here. That's what we want to try to make sure that they don't have to leave if they don't want to leave.
You mentioned that 95, population of 9,500, how many live on reservation versus?
About the same, but with other tribal members, like other
Yeah.
tribes.
So
go ahead.
it's a complicated number, I guess, because there's other tribal members, there's MCT members, there's other federally recognized tribal members, but we have other, you know, we try to provide service in areas for tribal members who don't live here. Like we have a lot of Leech Lakers who live in Bemidji, and so, you know, trying to focus efforts there. You know, we have our early childhood program and the clinic that was on 5th Street, but we also purchased a building that's north of on 71, almost by Highway 2 and 71, and trying to what's all operating in there right now? Just the Head Start? I think so.
It's just early childhood.
Just early childhood. But Duluth, I won't go into the whole relocation era either of why they wanted Indians to leave the reservation and go to metro areas for job and opportunity.
That's the next meeting.
But that's a reason why we have a lot of our relatives who moved to those areas. So when a lot of them live back here now, but they have stories of living in California and Los Angeles and Minneapolis and Chicago and a lot of those areas where there was an effort to move people away from the reservation. But we do have a lot of tribal members who live in the Minneapolis, Twin Cities area. And so trying to focus areas of providing service there. We have a bigger population in Duluth. And so we try to meet them where they're at, but we also want to try to provide access and opportunity for them to be able to move home when they choose as well. So.
Okay, I think for some time, thank you, Irene, for the presentation. Get the topic. Thank you very much for.
Thanks for the floor, Mr. Chairman. I know I kind of talked a lot. I told you guys.
We'll need a second meeting to get to the actual agenda. Which I think is fine. This is fine. I think this is why we're here, to ask each other questions and learn.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah, I like the dialogue that's happening, and but I think we need to continue on to item 5, formalizing the framework for cooperation. You know, and the board meetings typically start at 3 o'clock, so we really are, just against mine and.
Hey, Tim, maybe should we break up the agenda right now so that we know exactly what we need to accomplish in the next 30 minutes? Like perhaps,
Yeah, because everything that's left on the agenda is important,
how about we do number 5 and then wait for number 6 for our next meeting? Oh, you were on different agenda. So I'm like formalizing a framework for collaboration, just to have a quick discussion. So Leroy has to leave in about 10 minutes. So maybe we can have that discussion now and then reserve the next one, the current issues of mutual interest, for another meeting in the future. Okay, and then wrap it.
Sounds good. Larry?
Thank you. So, Mr. Chairman, I guess maybe I'll start, and then Irene and Leroy can step in as well. One of the things that I learned in going to the Tribal Relations Forum that AMC had developed and offered a couple weeks ago or so was this memorandum of understanding that exists now and has been in place for almost a decade or so between Cass County and Leech Lake Band of the Ojibwe. And this memorandum of understanding is a document that has been developed over years to essentially establish a working relationship and understanding when there were issues or concerns or challenges that each organization had that might impact or influence the other. And I had an opportunity to talk with John Stevenson, the county administrator for Cass County, and kind of probe more about, what is the agreement and how does it work for the county? What have you gained from it? And he spoke very, very highly of the process and the outcome and the current arrangement that Cass County has enjoyed with the Leech Lake band. And so I thought that was something that was extraordinarily interesting and might do us some good as a county as we work to resolve items of mutual interest with the band. So I am hoping that we created some space on this agenda so that we could talk that through a little bit more, and the band could talk a little bit more about what that process looked like, how they started it, and what your impressions are of it as well. It was featured at the Tribal Relations Forum and spoken to in high regard by a number of people who were associated with that. And so so I've got a background of it and thought it would be great if maybe the rest of the board would be interested in getting that background and perspective from the band as well.
So Leroy, do you want to get some perspective for you?
Yeah, sorry, I had a lot going on. I shuffled some things. I want to make sure to be here because this is really a critical step to us building a relationship and working together. And with Cass County, I think those earlier conversations, after we kind of started to sit in the same room, that it was joking about, well, if you Googled or you looked up Leech Lake in Cass County, you wouldn't see any pictures of us eating together, meeting together. You'd probably see reference of a lawsuit. And that's the highest, first thing that would show up on a Google search of the band in Cass County. And so really trying to change that narrative and simplify it, simplify what we do and how we do it. I think Chairman Sumner was referencing about constituency and overlapping. And so I was a part of that because I was on council. We had staff, our former land and environmental director thought that other hat was comfortable in working with the county. So he helped kind of forge that relationship too. And working with who's the former Cass County administrator, Bob Yoakum. So Bob Yoakum was there at the time when we got the MOU passed and approved. So Bob Yoakum was a part of that, and then Josh was he kind of took over after Bob was done. Is it Bob?
Yeah, it was Bob.
Bob, yeah. But it was talking about the services that we provide and enhancing what we do together. And as simple as that sounds, it's been really critical in getting that point and moving in that direction. So you guys have 90 million, we have 90 million. You guys put X amount towards human service, we put X amount towards human service, but we are not working together in enhancing what those, we'll say 10 million and 10 million. We're not making the 20 million work better. We're working in silos, making the 10 million and 10 million, trying to stretch and try to make it work. But what if we use the 10 million and 10 million and we make, however it's the numbers are going to be different, but it's just to reflect and kind of paint a picture of if we're working together on something, it's going to make things probably, if it's working in a good way, it's going to obviously benefit the constituents we represent. And that's just really what it is. We're here. The leadership of Leech Lake is here because we represent citizenship of Leech Lake. You guys are here because you represent the citizenship of Beltrami County. The Leech Lakers who live in Beltrami County are the same person. And so changing that conversation from, well, our county people and your band members, a lot of times that's the same person. The same person as the county person and the tribal person. And so simplifying it, how can we work together to not work against each other and work more complement of each other is how that conversation was started. But it's building relationship and building trust and not trying to over formalize something right away, not trying to make things more technical than they had to right away. We had a lot of conversation leading up to it. So, I mean, it was probably a few years, I think 2014 might have been when we signed it. Yeah, so I mean, it was building trust was a big thing because there was a lot of people who had mistrust of working with the county or people who had mistrust of working with the band and things might not have been in good faith in the past. And so you gotta kind of work through those things to really try to scale everything back to what the benefit is going to be to the constituent and who we represent. So we had many conversations. And so at the leadership level, it was more about let's come together and have some soup and sandwiches and, really build a relationship. But it took staff and the staff who are working together. That's what's really made it work. So we come together annually, but our staff are meeting together on projects probably daily, weekly, monthly to make that work. And if there's a kink, there's kind of a liaison, would say, who's been kind of that conduit from the band side and then working with the administrator. Like if there's any kinks that come up, like you can kind of get things worked out. So like if it was Irene and yourself, you guys would have to have a really ongoing, weekly discussions and meetings and just really on the same page to a lot of things because there's a lot of work that overlaps. And so
I talk to Josh Stevenson probably every day.
so that's really what it takes to kind of make those things work. But I think like the foundation of that was just building trust and having conversations. As simple as it sounds, that's really where it starts. And so, if you guys left here, we left here, like, I don't know, man, it just didn't feel right in there. It's hard for us to plan for our next meeting and be optimistic that we're gonna get somewhere, right? So laying everything on the table, coming to the table with good intent, that's the foundation of what I think it would take to do that. And so having those conversations, so we had a conversation about maybe plowing or grading or something like that we ended up talking about. And we were like, yeah, we gotta get together, but we just ended up missing each other a lot of times. So we finally, we had conversations over the phone, which was helpful, but kind of getting here and formalizing something and getting to that point helps strengthen that though, and putting pen to paper that helps carry things forward. Does that help?
Yeah. So we have, we can present some thoughts on what a memorandum of understanding would look like or what ours looks like in Cass County, just to maybe think about between now and assuming you want to meet again, then that discussion can happen at that point.
And our annual meeting is the liaisons, they meet and they go over the agenda.
Yeah, I'll show you like the sample agenda.
It's like, what did we accomplish in this previous year? And then what's the goals that we're gonna work on in the following year? And so each of the areas from leadership from Leech Lake and from the programs and the county, they do their presentations and kind of talk about things like in a presentation manner. So it's not like, well, I remember 6 months ago, you guys didn't do this. I mean, if the kinks do come up, and they do come up, right? Because everything's not perfect and everything's not seamless and streamlined in a perfect sense, but we have staff that has the intent of making that thing work, and that's really what is the strength of it, I think. And then leadership talking, so like the administrator and county commissioners call and text, like, not all the time, but I mean, we communicate often enough that if there's any concerns about anything, you know, that they feel comfortable enough to call or text, or, you know, hey, if you're in town, want to have a cup of coffee, just based on some things. And so, I mean, if we got to that point with all of our partners, you know, all of the counties that we work with, I mean, I think it's gonna be a lot of good work to be had there. So I do have to run. I can't get out of the next step of my
You're supposed to leave at 2.
and I talk a lot, so if you want to get my email from Irene or my cell phone, she can share it, and I would love to have more.
You have 3 more minutes, maybe?
Yeah.
Leroy? Maybe
You want
maybe
me
a good time.
Sign the MOU?
No.
Pre-sign it, then you guys work on it.
I mean, we had as a friendship gesture, wanted to present you and your band members, or your other commissioners, a gift from our county. Okay. And so, I think the chairman will, present that to you now, if you don't mind. And,
Yeah, sure.
maybe we snap a picture as well.
To the center.
Center?
A picture of appreciation. Here and
All right.
with some hospitality.
Thanks for hosting, Tim Lake.
Thank you.
On your city. Good to have some good humor at it.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think there's some more here. I don't know if Irene wants to. We'll take
She had some,
them.
okay.
Well, yeah, we got this. So we have,
These neighbors?
yeah, I can take it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Does anybody want to picture of Leroy Town before we leave? So we have wildlife, everybody, you know, you guys
And it came
are
down to our staff taking care of things.
Oh, yeah.
That's what we're working with. Actually, every person. Anyone just want to go over.
Yeah, for sure.
Meet you personally. Yeah, look forward to getting together with you.
Okay.
So here's, I believe, more stuff for both the members.
I don't know. I was the last one. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
When Leroy gets back and say, they didn't give us anything. They sent us."
Okay. All right.
okay, so, so we'll continue on. We've got a couple more minutes before our, for our third come to some sort of agreement. So, I guess I'll open it up to the questions on the thoughts or.
Yeah, we should try and have another meeting, maybe not a year from now, but sooner.
Why don't we shoot for twice a year?
Yeah,
Like first part of the year and then middle.
That sounds good. We have,
It's August or September, so maybe September, October. Be a good time.
yeah, just,
That memorandum of understanding, you know, I believe it's something similar that we have, with Red Lake, but it's not in writing, but it's more of a kind of an agreement that we have between the county and tribe that, we'll work on similar issues of interest. So I'm not too sure how that would work out or if there's just the board.
I'd be interested in seeing, I imagine it's public document, the MOU between.
Yeah, so-
Cass Lake and, Cass County and Reach.
We can send that, I'll send that to you. It's, what it's based on is, so this agenda is based on the MOU. This is like a sample agenda that we would have in Cass County, or with you, I guess. So what we do is we interface staff to staff. So for instance, your roads person would engage with Matt Connor, who is our roads director. And throughout the year, they would have, their regular meetings or, engagements or whatever, phone calls just to check in, or when issues came up, they would resolve those or bring them to me or to Tom, and then we would work to resolve those. So the agenda for the meeting or the meeting structure is built around that. So what we do is we have each staff, like here, like roads and trails. So Matt would report out. So they would report out on what had happened throughout the year, achievements and like current status of issues that they're currently working on or issues that our leadership has asked them to address. And then we just kind of go down every area of, I'm out of breath, sorry. Like running around, every area of our government. So these are the areas that we, and I assume you're kind of set up a lot like Cass County as far as like similar departments and stuff. And so this is pretty much how it would be structured. So we would just go down each department or area of interest or whatever and report out. And it's really effective because it holds us accountable. And it also is a way to update our leadership on a lot of the accomplishments that we've had throughout the year. And then at the bottom is just closing remarks. But that's pretty much, so our law enforcement would report out on their issues and then go all the way down. But yeah, but I can get you a copy of the MOU. I can send it to Tom. You can take a look at that.
I read that, John.
Yeah, anybody else that wants to jump in?
So yeah, like the band has a few different MOUs with like the Forest Service, Cass County. And if you read through them, they're not like earth-shattering documents. Really, it's
right.
It's the I think it's the expectations, just leadership signing a document, expecting the staff to work together. And like Irene said, when we meet with Cass County, the week before, I'll meet with their environmental person. We'll kind of come up with the agenda together, and then we present together. And I think just having that expectation for staff, that your leadership is expecting you to work with your counterpart wherever, really carries a lot of weight. At least I think that's probably at least my experience. That's what I've seen.
Yeah.
And generally, we use the MOUs to set up the framework for a cooperative relationship. And then within that MOU, there might be other agreements that are developed within that framework that then become part of the relationship. But the MOU, the memorandum of understanding, really just kind of sets the expectations for that relationship, identifies the individuals or positions within each of the organizations that are going to be responsible for that communication, interface, and cooperation. But it sets some very high level goals generally as far as cooperation, but they generally don't require specific action on specific issues. Those would be something that would be developed within that framework of the MOU.
They kind of do, but I mean, it's not so. Like our MOU with the county, with Cass County, requires that any action that impacts the other government, they must notify their counterpart in the other government 14 days beforehand. And we pretty much stick to that. There's a lot of communication around this, and it just does away with a lot of the miscommunication and nobody told us and all of that. And so that's one mechanism in the MOU. The other, so the coordination meetings, we meet with the Cass County twice a year and set those dates at the beginning of the year usually. So and those are like the basic parts But I'll send you a copy, you guys can take a look. And we can do, so we were the first county and tribe to enter into an MOU in the country. And now a lot of counties and tribes have these. I don't know how many, but there are several now. And so we can structure it any way we want. It doesn't have to be like this. It can be more. I mean, Beltrami County is such a smaller part of our reservation, so we might want to take that into consideration as well. But we have time to think about it.
Thank you. So I'm going to suggest that we at the board, put this on a virtual work meeting agenda, kind of discuss our next steps there, and hopefully, Tom and Irene or Tom and reach like that and have some sort of talks on kind of covering what we didn't get to cover today here on the agenda. So I would propose that as before I forget our next meeting. But we got 10 minutes left, and I want to save some time for maybe some closing remarks or some people mingle before our 3 o'clock meeting. So I guess in closing, thank you guys. It was just pretty exciting. I'm really looking forward to seeing what relationships develop from today's meeting. Looking forward to some colleagues.
Let us mingle a little bit before we start a regular meeting. And people see Matt over there, we'll come on the phone to get to see him in person and so on.
So with that, we'll adjourn this historic meeting. I'm very hopeful that this is just the first of many. So, be great.